What if mystery was never meant to confuse you, never meant to keep you guessing, never meant to be a weapon of power, but a rhythm of timing, a sanctuary of care, a place where yes and no both opened onto dignity? What if mystery, when honest, wasn't about keeping someone in the dark, but about giving space for light to enter at the pace a human heart can carry? Your mystery is not a trick or a game. It is not spectacle. It is a rhythm of what is revealed and what is reserved, a balance that refuses to outrun comprehension. You do not rip fruit from the branch before it is sweet to prove you own the orchard. You do not hide harvests to create the illusion of scarcity. You let ripeness decide, and you allow that ripeness to be shaped by care, not pressure. Care is visible in you. It looks like boundaries that announce their limits the way a bridge carries its weight in honesty. It looks like desire that names itself clearly and waits for consent to become story. It looks like silence that protects meaning rather than hoarding power. Because of this care, she approaches you differently. Her body, once trained to brace around men who confuse mystery with control, begins to soften. She steps toward you not as though standing at the edge of a cliff, but as a hand moves toward a trusted door. Aware, awake, unafraid, your mystery slows the breath. The exhale is given time to complete. The inhale arrives without grasping, because honest mystery creates space, and space is what makes trust possible. When she is near you, she sees two doors, yes and no, and both lead to dignity. Where both doors are real, none need to be forced. She does not fear what she has the right to refuse. She does not fear what she is free to want. The unknown stops being a cliff threatening to swallow her. It becomes a landscape, wide, steady, meant to be discovered step by step at the pace her nervous system can carry. You walk beside her, never rushing, never forcing, always honoring that pace. Your want carries a different atmosphere. It is not hunger disguised as romance, not questions wielded like knives, not midnight raids on the pantry dressed as intimacy. Your want wears work clothes. It knocks, it waits, it brings provisions, and it knows how to leave when the hour says not yet, not this, or not at all. She senses this even in your distance. Your distance is not posturing as power. Your nearness is not posturing as entitlement. They are both clean. They are both free. They both carry dignity. She knows you are not the kind of man who manipulates with guilt. Guilt is a cheap spell. It leaves stains. You choose the harder magic. The miracle of leaving a room in order. The unknown in you is not a vacuum demanding her performance. It is a sanctuary asking for reverence. You treat revelations not as spectacle, but as liturgy. Spectacle devours meaning until it burns itself out. Liturgy restores meaning, slowly, rhythmically, patiently. In liturgy, even small gestures are holy. A breath before truth so the truth does not feel rushed. A hand steadying a chair so the hour feels held. A soft goodbye so the next beginning is not burdened by a slammed door. These small things teach her that wonder can be preserved, not just chased. You do not colonize her mystery with your certainty. You are both ocean and shore in your own life. You know your own depths. So when her depths speak in currents instead of headlines, you do not demand translation. You listen. You wait. You honor the part of her that only answers to patience. Patience is not weakness. Patience is confidence in process. Pressure breaks things. Process matures them. Because you carry this patience, she begins to trust you with questions she once only carried into solitude. Not to surrender them to you, but to let you hold the lantern while she reads them herself. Mystery that is safe invites play. And play is not the opposite of seriousness. It is the opposite of fear. Under fear, touch becomes transaction, and silence becomes punishment. Under play, touch continues what truth began, and silence becomes a room with windows. You create those kinds of rooms. She begins to unlearn her bracing. The weapons she once carried grow heavy. Her hands prefer instruments. And with you, even refusal is music. Storms will still come. The horizon will fog. The tide will promise more than it can deliver. Your mystery will be tested. You will feel the temptation to distract with spectacle, to bang gongs so no one notices the cloud. But you resist. You keep the lamp at human height. You keep your no steady, your yes honest, your presence calm. Mystery that does not panic in storms becomes something more than impressive. It becomes trustworthy, and trustworthy mystery does not leave behind longing. It leaves behind guidance. She remembers you not as a door slammed shut, but as a window that taught her the shape of light. She remembers that your depths did not drown her, that your questions did not wound her, that your not knowing did not make her a map. She remembers that the unknown can be generous when borders are clear and truth is told. Your presence does not build stages where people perform. It builds rooms where people return to themselves. You do not announce sanctuary. You arrange it. Your pauses teach time to move differently. Your gaze teaches faces they will not be reduced to being seen. And without ceremony, order forms around you. Laughter softens. Silence becomes rest. Breath arrives without apology. The room itself becomes temple. And in that temple, desire is not spectacle. It is a candle in glass. It does not devour. It illuminates. She feels wanted, not requisitioned, cherished, not used. Peace does not come as a prize here. Peace is the policy. Your boundaries are not cages. They are architecture. They are bridges that tell their strength so travelers know they are safe. She sees in them the rare invitation to be bold without recklessness, to be soft without fear. And in this architecture, confession changes. It stops being performance and becomes release. Shame loses its audience. Clarity takes its seat. Healing begins. You do not edit her truth to flatter your legend. You simply hold the lamp. A true temple sends people out better than they entered. You do not slam doors. You do not harvest gratitude. You do not use absence as punishment. You close softly. You honor the hinge, because hinges decide whether tomorrow feels safe to open. She leaves with breath intact, carrying not claim but climate. And soon she notices the climate travels. She carries it into cafes, meetings, kitchens, chairs angled toward faces, questions asked at human volume, gratitude given without invoices, refusal spoken as guardrails, not threats. People breathe easier and do not know why. She knows. Storms still come, but shelter makes storms survivable. In your shelter, disagreement remains issue, not verdict. Repair becomes craft, simple, honest, unashamed. She learns the liturgy of repair by osmosis. Her body, no longer trained to brace, becomes free for generosity again. Your mystery does not create relics. It creates standards. Standards outlast miracles. They keep roofs steady in thunder. They keep floors steady in joy. She does not return to pedestal. She returns to practice. Practice is forever. Practice is what the body can live with. You never once say, "You are safe." You make it obvious. Safe is the door that admits and releases without punishing either choice. Safe is the floor that does not need to be memorized. Safe is the room where her nervous system no longer scans for exits, but instead looks for lamps, until she realizes She has become one. And this is the true legacy of your mystery. Not that people remember you as instrument, but that they remember their direction. You do not leave autograph. You leave orientation. You hand habits, not headlines. You hand tools, not trophies. She uses them to build furniture for her life. Tables that hold meals and conversations. Doors that close softly without waking the house. Shelves low enough for weight to be lifted without bravado. These things are small. They are invisible to cameras, but they are beautiful to days that want to function without bleeding. Your mystery, kept this way, does not leave her guessing. It leaves her glad. Glad to breathe. Glad to trust. Glad to live. It leaves her walking in a world where questions are welcome. Answers are humble. Love learns the language of seasons. And the compass still points true even when the road disappears beneath her feet. They come disguised as urgency, as cleverness, as moods that carry a hidden price. They arrive pretending to be necessary, hoping to pull you into noise and spectacle. But you do not drive them out by shouting louder. You do not prove strength by escalation. You let your presence itself show their foolishness. You hold steady where others flail. You reduce instead of inflame. That reduction is not avoidance. It is mastery. It is how the crushing boulders of tension become stones small enough to carry. Stones that can be moved together to the place where a bridge will someday stand. She sees this not as passivity, but as reverence. She feels in her bones that your refusal to amplify chaos is a kind of sacred respect. Reverence, she learns, is not the thunderous voice of control, but the quiet power that even teaches fear to lower its tone, to whisper like a child stepping carefully into a sanctuary. Your refuge is not filled with performance, not decorated with spectacle, not heavy with proof. At its center sits a table. On that table rests what is simple and true. Words that do not exaggerate. Water that can be reached without asking. The right to say no without turning it into a scene. Accuracy here is not sharpness. It is holiness. It keeps trust alive by preventing the small distortions that eventually rot its foundation. You do not pretend to be all-knowing. You do not make false promises to buy time. You know that "I don't know" is not weakness. It is a lit candle in a dark corner. It is clarity where guessing would only cause unrest. Guessing spends tomorrow's breath before tomorrow arrives. Rest, instead, saves it. Rest invests it, and that investment matures into clarity. Clarity is the reason she does not pace when you leave. Pacing belongs to courtrooms, to witnesses waiting to be questioned, to defendants rehearsing their answers. You have kept her hour from trial. You have guarded her peace from judgment. In your field there is no cross-examination, only the calm rhythm of truth spoken when it is known and silence when it is not. Your refuge carries the wisdom of balance. It knows the subtle difference between closeness and crowding, between solitude and exile. Your magnetism moves with this rhythm. It does not crash like a flood, nor vanish like a drought. It moves like a tide, steady, patient, reliable. It comes forward with kindness and recedes with the same kindness. You do not hoard. You do not withhold. You allow the moment to breathe. And in that breathing, attraction transforms. It becomes an exchange instead of extraction. In your presence, desire no longer feels like requisition, no longer feels like a demand stamped with authority. It feels like invitation. And her body, long trained to defend itself, begins to remember the rare miracle of being wanted without being claimed. That miracle rewrites memory itself. It dissolves scars left by places that called possession love. Your presence restores something even rarer: play. And play is no small thing. Play is often the first treasure that fear confiscates. Without play, life turns into duty and suspicion. But in your refuge, play returns as if a stolen tool has been handed back, cleaned and oiled, with gratitude for its use. Here, play is not a trick, not a mask for harm. It is the intelligence of joy alive in the room. It is laughter that moves furniture without stealing it. It is teasing that never wastes respect. It is the simple courage to be silly without becoming slippery. And she feels the difference immediately. Her shoulders, once heavy and sharp like the walls of a fortress, begin to soften. They stop impersonating battlements. They reshape into wings and shells, structures that can lift, structures that can hold. Her body learns again that safety makes it useful, not just defensive. Your refuge has its rituals, and they are small, humble, almost invisible to those who only know the dramatic. You make tea at ordinary temperatures. You speak the time aloud so hope does not have to wonder. You oil the hinge instead of cursing the wind. You end things when ending will keep the future strong. These are not performances. They are scaffolding, quiet supports that lift the weight so the structure can be repaired without collapse. Because of them, she learns generosity. She leaves rooms not just as she found them, but warmer. She walks into other spaces carrying your presence like a subtle fragrance, one that improves the air without announcing itself. Others breathe easier without knowing why. This is how refuge spreads. By example, never by sermon. What you refuse is just as holy as what you offer. You refuse to turn sacred weather into a spectacle. You refuse to sell wonder as though it were merchandise. You refuse to outsource courage to chemicals or distractions. You refuse to punish slowness, because you know that meaning itself moves slowly. These refusals are why she trusts you. Trust is not born of fireworks or performance. It is born from the quiet resistances that keep a life unharvested. A harvested life must perform to survive. An unharvested one gives freely, like breath. In your refuge, giving feels natural again, like breathing, like exhaling without fear of suffocation. The magnet at the center of your refuge is not mystery, it is mercy. It gathers what is scattered and allows it to rest whole again without paperwork, without tests, without the bureaucracy of proving worth. She does not linger because of the shape of your face or the tailoring of your hours. She lingers because your field promises honesty. She is not in love with adornment, but with solvency, with the sacred right to be whole among others who guard their own weather. This is why her eyes call you home, even while her mouth continues speaking of ordinary things.